Hey there folks, Tim Slade here, and welcome back to our final ATD Ask a Trainer episode for 2020. In today's episode, I'm answering some of your questions we received from our earlier episodes this year that didn't make the cut. So let's get the show on the road. Now, I don't know about you, but I have to say I am so happy we're finally at the end of 2020. It has been one heck of a year, to say the least. However, if I'm looking on the bright side of things, I feel like we as a community and industry of learning professionals, we really had the opportunity to step up to the plate and deliver for our organizations and, of course, our learners. And beyond that, I feel like we've each found new ways to connect and network and learn from one another. And so the truth is, for all of the different things, all the negative things I could list about 2020, I actually think there's been a lot of good to come out of it. So as we look to wrap up the year, the folks at ATD and I thought it would be fun to do something a little different for our December episode. We started the ATD Ask a Trainer video series back in June of this year, and each month since, we've received dozens and dozens of really great questions on all sorts of topics. However, we only get to include a few of them for each episode. So for our final episode of the year, I decided I wanted to look back at some of the awesome questions we received that didn't make the cut. So let's get to them. All right, so our first question that didn't make the cut in 2020 comes from Kara North. Hey, Kara. And this question comes from July's episode on working with difficult stakeholders and subject matter experts. And Kara wants to know, what are some tips for getting my SMEs on the same page as my instructional design team? Fantastic question, Kara, because I think this is a really, really common issue that a lot of folks in our industry struggle with. And what it really boils down to, in my experience, is that your SMEs and your instructional design team are not speaking the same language. What usually happens is your SMEs come to the table with all sorts of preconceptions of what their role is going to be in the process, and that usually has to do with them already having an idea of what's going to be built and how it's going to be solved and what sort of knowledge you're going to throw at your learners. And so they come to the table with all sorts of preconceptions. And so the couple of tips I can give you on getting your SMEs and your instructional designers on the same page is to kind of clear the air every time you start a new project. Clear the air and help your subject matter experts, or remind your subject matter experts of what their role is in the process, what your role as instructional designers, what your role is in the process, and how you work to collaborate with one another. And one of the ways that you do that to help you all get on the same page and start working towards a common goal is to not talk about the learners, not talk about the information that needs to be covered, not talk about learning objectives, but start all the way back with whatever your business goal is with the learning. Start with the business goal and what they're looking to achieve from a business standpoint, and start working backwards from that. So start with the business goal and then identify not what learners need to know, but what learners need to do. If you start focusing on those things, then you can start working on designing a learning solution where your subject matter experts are hopefully going to be on the same page as your instructional design team, because you all worked on it together. So start speaking the same language, help them understand their role in the process, and focus on actions, tasks, behaviors, business goals, and not just knowledge. So great question, Kara, and I hope that helps. All right, so our second question that didn't make the cut in 2020 comes from Danielle Hunt. Hi, Danielle. And this question comes from October's episode on building your online portfolio. And Danielle wants to know, what's more important, showing proficiency in a variety of tools or a variety of skills? Great question, Danielle. My opinion is, well, I think it depends. Ultimately, it depends on what you want to be hired for and what your clients, whoever you're targeting, what they're going to be looking for in your portfolio. You know, for me, I am primarily an e-learning designer who focuses in on articulate storyline. So all of the examples on my portfolio showcase my ability to use articulate storyline, But I also want to showcase my skills in visual design, graphic design, interaction design. And so I showcase those in my examples that are built in Articulate Storyline. So it's a combination of both. So the real question you need to be asking yourself is, what do you want to be hired for? And how do you showcase that in your portfolio so that when somebody goes and looks at your portfolio, there's no question about what your skills are, what your talents are, what tools you use. So in my opinion, I think it has to be a combination of both. But ultimately, the answer is whatever it is that you want to be hired for and what you want to showcase. So I hope that helps. And best of luck, Danielle. Thanks for the question. All right, so our third and final question that didn't make the cut in 2020 comes from Maria Gabriela Delgado Sapp. And this question comes from November's episode on becoming a full-time freelancer. And Maria wants to know, how can I gain experience as an entry-level freelancer? Oh, that's a really great question, because I think a lot of people who want to get into freelancing but aren't yet freelancing, there's this weird question of, well, how do you even begin, right? There's a couple different ways you can start freelancing as an entry-level freelancer. First off, utilize your nights and weekends to do some freelance work part-time, right? If you see a post online where somebody's looking for a freelancer or a contractor, reach out and see, can you do it during your nights and weekends as sort of a side hustle? And through that process, you will start gaining some experience, and you'll see whether or not doing it full-time might be a viable option for you. Beyond that, the other thing I would recommend looking into is maybe some subcontracting. So maybe you do some subcontracting work for people who are freelancing full-time. For me, as a freelancer, I freelance full-time. There's oftentimes work that I don't think is worth my time, or is too tedious, or I need to outsource. And so sometimes I'll subcontract other freelancers to do all sorts of different work. Maybe they'll help me implement edits that I receive from one of my clients, or maybe they'll help me sync audio narration, or whatever the case might be. So one of the great ways to kind of get your feet wet in freelancing is subcontracting, either for other freelancers or e-learning development companies out there who hire subcontractors. So there's a lot of different options to gain experience. It's just going to require you, maybe sacrificing your nights and weekends to make it happen. That's how I started, and I did that for several years before I started full-time. So I hope that helps, Maria. Fantastic question, and of course, best of luck. All right, folks, that is a wrap for 2020. As always, I want to thank everyone out there who submitted a question for any of our episodes this year. And of course, I want to thank all of you who supported the Ask a Trainer video series by commenting and sharing, and of course, watching. We are so excited for what we have in store for 2021. And so until then, enjoy the rest of the holidays, and I will see you next year.